Well, you know, when I first started this way back when, it was $1, and now it's 5.
Yeah.
You know,
What's that?
$5 a can practically anywhere you go anymore.
Oh, for the,
So I mean, I've been through the whole gamut of all the brands over the years, and I went to Grizzly for a while, which I have now, because that was the cheapest at the time, and now it's up with the rest of them.
Well, it's funny too,
$5
because
a
you look
can.
at it, it'll say $3.99, but then it comes up with $6. It's the tax, it just.
Oh yeah,
tax.
especially in my state, we get killed with tax on alcohol and all.
I stumbled into a retail wholesale heaven in North St. Louis up near Crown Candy. There's this place that has all wholesale liquor, tobacco. They have like whole boxes of beech nut for some really low price. And I said, well, what do you have to do to buy here? With this, you have to be a registered retailer. But it would be nice to find some way around all of it.
Yeah.
Even so-called dirt sheet is
Oh,
far
it's
from
not.
it. They've got a scam going with the buy two get one free, or they'll do the
Right.
third one free.
And a lot of times you get, if you buy 2, you get $1 off the third. There's a lot of that with push, but it's never a deal.
And if I were buying 2 or 3 kids at a time, I'd just keep doing it, so.
I buy rolls every time.
Do you really?
5 bag, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
And that's about,
I would
in
do
my
it-
state,
I would
we're
do it
talking
every day.
$23. Wow. $23.
It's crazy.
How long does it?
5 days.
So you go
6 days.
10 a day?
I try not to. I really do. That's why I leave them for so long, because I don't want to keep using
Right.
it.
Have you ever thought of starting a farm?
Starting a farm.
A tobacco farm.
Yeah. I don't know if you can do that up here though. I don't know if it'll grow.
Give it another decade and we'll have Virginia's climate.
Yeah. We've already got armadillos, so it might work. Which I actually saw for the first time in my life, a live one.
Same here, this summer.
Not a
I saw
dead one, a live one.
I've
Waddling
seen
down the
tons
side of the
of
road.
That's the,
dead ones on 44.
Yeah.
It's good.
There's a lot
There's
of-
a lot of time for
live
research, so I
ones
can
are
straight on.
first
Give me like 2 minutes.
Which kind of tells me
Yeah.
that's
I'm
where
clearly
they're
not.
they're coming from the southwest up 44.
are you familiar with the format this morning?
Because there's so many of them on
Sorry,
44.
about
Why
that.
44?
What's that?
The format?
Yeah, so that tells me that's their route. They're getting up there through 44.
Texas, Oklahoma.
On all topics, if you talk about the.
Even if I said no, you'd probably ask all topics.
I always want to get 2 stories for the price of one.
Can you start with non-topic?
Yeah, I was going to work the other morning and I saw something off to the side of the road and my headlights moving. So I slowed down. Sure enough, I'm just waddling down the side of the road next to me.
There's a newspaper on it, pretty immediately soon, it's a dead body crawling and trying to find.
Help.
Anyone who hasn't passed up a rolled up piece of carpet and thought, there's a body in there.
You know I do it all the time.
Or you get like turned around somewhere and you go, hey, that's a great place to find a body.
Yeah.
So Meyer
somehow drove down the road with her cell phone on top of her car the other day, and they found it, a young couple found it in Waterloo in the middle of an intersection on Route 3. Nice of them, though, they somehow got into the phone. There's a passcode that my mom's phone has, you have to put in the number code, right? How they got past that, I don't know, but they called my stepsister to let her know that they had found this phone, did she know who owned it? I guess somehow they got to her number in the phone. But how can you bypass the security code?
All right, I'm gonna,
They said, the girl told me, I talked to her on the phone, she said she used Siri to do it. But how? What kind of security is that?
I was gonna guess that maybe your sister had called your mom and the number was up on it.
Oh, on the front maybe? Just on the front of the screen?
Yeah,
I don't know, that could be.
but if she said she used Siri,
Yeah.
Only she said Siri calls her.
Or Siri called daughter, or called son, or
I
now.
think she called on her own private phone. So,
After, yeah.
I was just, how did she get my stepsister's number? Well, that was maybe what Joe said, maybe that's not she.
I had, I did that, and Durham Heights Police ran my phone.
Is that right?
Called and said, hey, missing something? I said, yeah, come on down and get it. They left off the sound last night. I appreciate it.
That was nice.
Pretty good going sound. Where to start?
I think so. It don't sound good as love, man.
I think they're walking down the road, right?
Yep, she just did her intro.
were you buddy?
Morning. Morning.
Slide on down. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. At the crux of every single violent crime is a victim. Victims whose lives were cut short or whose lives were forever altered by the violent crime and violent acts of others. Of course, the other victims of violent crime are the families and friends and loved ones of those who are left behind. The children, the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, and dear friends who seek answers and justice, though it will never bring back their loved ones or diminish the pain and loss that they suffer every single day. It is the victims of the violent crimes and their loved ones who are front and center of everything we do on a daily basis to seek justice for the wrongs that have been committed against our citizens. Victims are top of mind in every case we charge, in partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office in both the Eastern and the Western districts, help get violent criminals off the streets in St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield through our Safer Streets initiative. And victims drive our work every day as we're tracking the untested sexual assault kits in our state, sending those kits to the lab, making referrals to local prosecutors. And as we fight human trafficking here in Missouri and work to make our state the most inhospitable place for human traffickers, we take a victim-centric approach to identify the bad actors and prosecute them, not those who have fallen prey to their illicit schemes of enslavement. Thinking about the victims and their family and their loved ones who remain behind was why late last year we launched the first statewide cold case unit in the Missouri Attorney General's office. This unit, whose initial efforts were led by seasoned and storied prosecutors Tom Dittmeyer and Dean Hogue, have been bolstered by the addition of Kevin Zellner, who's here to my right, an experienced prosecutor here in the Missouri Attorney General's office. He has been tasked many times across the state through the Special Prosecution Unit and takes on some of the toughest cases in the state and the ones we've ever seen. He leads that team of investigators to carry forth the mission of the cold case unit. He's respected by law enforcement, judges, prosecutors throughout the state, is one of the best in the business. Thank you, Kevin, for agreeing to lead this important effort. Today, as promised, We have a second case in which we filed charges. Before I begin, let me remind you that these are merely charges, and those charged with a crime are innocent until proven guilty. But by bringing fresh set of eyes to the case, specifically the watchful eyes of Dean and Kevin working with Sheriff Marshak and his team from Jefferson County, we believe that the facts of the 17-year-old murder case in Jefferson County provide us with the probable cause we need to charge Alice Weiss with murder in the second degree of her live-in boyfriend, James Summers, back in 2004. According to our probable cause statement, Mr. Summers was found dead in his driveway by the Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies just past 8 p.m. on April 27, 2004, with clear trauma to his facial area. Upon further investigation, a .22 caliber handgun was found between Mr. Summers' body and the house, and deputies realized that Summers had been shot in the back and in the face. Summers' girlfriend, Alice Weiss, was questioned by deputies and told them that the .22 caliber handgun had belonged to her and that she had stored it in a bedroom closet unloaded. According to Miss Weiss, Mr. Summers had left to pick up his daughter from a gymnastics class while she went to shower in the master bedroom. Miss Weiss claims to have heard the gunshots from the bathroom and went to investigate. Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies noticed several inconsistencies in Miss Weiss' statements and the story. Following her initial statement, deputies performed a gunshot residue swab on her hands, while Miss Weiss attempted to stall and use the restroom. When deputies would not allow her to use the restroom, she changed her story and stated that she fired the handgun earlier that day, apparently for the first time in 20 years. There were materials on the left sleeve of the robe Miss Weiss was wearing the night before the murder and are consistent with gunshot residue. Although Miss Weiss stated she had not been wearing a robe when she apparently shot the handgun earlier in the day. There were several inconsistencies and differing accounts on where the handgun had been stored as well. In addition, detectives recreated Miss Weiss' account of hearing gunshots from the shower and knowing definitively that there were gunshots by placing an audio recording device in the shower and firing the handgun outside. The detectives concluded that the sounds were barely audible and that it would be incredibly difficult to recognize the sounds of gunfire unless you knew exactly what to listen to. The probable cause statement also relies on testimony from Miss Weiss' cousin, who said that on the ride home from the sheriff's office that day after the murder, that Miss Weiss stated that she, and I'll use the phrase messed up here in exchange for actual words that were used, in messing up her story with deputies. Additionally, the cousin shared that he and Miss Weiss were shopping at a Walmart in 2008 when Weiss shared that even if she had been charged with Mr. Summers' murder, she could say that her father shot Mr. Summers because he was dead and could avoid prosecution, and that Miss Weiss compared Mr. Summers to her hated older brother. Those facts and others have led us to the charges that we filed yesterday afternoon. Before I turn it over to Sheriff Marshak, I want to make clear that I believe that one of the most solemn duties as Attorney General is to tackle violent crime here in Missouri. We are still committed to working with others to get the current violent crime issue under control, but we absolutely must not forsake the victims of violent crime whose cases have not gone solved and whose remain cold. The passage of time does not in any way diminish the importance of this case and others we are currently investigating. Mr. Summers' daughter still deserves justice for her father, and we intend to fight to bring that justice to her and all of Mr. Summers' loved ones. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for a couple of minutes. I would just like to recognize the Attorney General and their efforts to make this possible for the family and for the victims out there, because it takes seasoned prosecutors who are willing to spend the extra time to prosecute these cases and get victims justice. These types of cases take experienced prosecutors. They are not prosecuted by new prosecutors without the experience, the training, education, and court time. These are complex, and without diving into all the evidence, there's much more evidence to this case, but I believe that these victims will get justice as a result. And I've spoken with the family. They're very excited about the opportunity to finally have the opportunity to get justice. And again, thank you to the Attorney General's office and his entire staff to make this possible for this family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff. Does a great job at Jefferson County, and we're proud to be working with. With that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Good morning. Can you tell us, please, how many cold cases are out there in the universe that you're investigating? Just what's the general progress of the years since you announced this?
We did in working in conjunction with the Highway Patrol and others, have done an inventory of cases that we are currently looking at. There are dozens of cases. And I think that just making it a priority, forming this new unit, the cold case unit being led by Kevin here, signals that it is a priority. There will, we anticipate there are more to come in the near future. But that's that level of cooperation we have with the locals, certainly like here in Jefferson County. So there will be more to come. And I think it's important to make sure we're delivering justice, even as these cases are sometimes decades old.
What initially brought this case to the attention of the Attorney General more than any other cases out there?
Yeah, I think what we've found is that there are cases, as we've worked with law enforcement across the state, that if you have some additional resources, people had, they had been looking at these cases, and as we bring in our team of investigators and prosecutors to put another set of fresh eyes on it, that there are charges that can be had, and this is one of those cases. So it really was this cooperative effort, a new set of eyes, the resources that we have in the Attorney General's office that we can bring to bear that made these charges possible.
Okay, I should follow up. Of the dozens of cases that you're looking at, are most of them murders, or what types of crimes?
Yes, murders. Yeah, we're focused on murders.
And may I ask the sheriff, just if you could, and you can both answer this,
Sure.
General, what's the importance of catching somebody long after the crime so that, they don't get away with murder?
Well, I think there's two parts to it, and also to comment, I think there's a number of cold cases throughout the entire state. I think it really comes down to the allocation of resources. The criminal justice system is already stressed. We know that. There's not enough good prosecutors. I think with the allocation of manpower to create this new unit, I think this is not the second press release that we're going to have. I think you'll continue to see more of these as long as the resources are allocated. There's quite a few cold cases out there across the entire state that need to be looked at.
And in Jefferson County, with this murder of the guy killed in the driveway, what message does that send to the county that they didn't get away with it?
Look, I think it sends a message to victims all across the state that there's still an opportunity. Law enforcement is going to be working together throughout the entire system to hold people accountable. And because the case is 5 or 10, or in this case 17 years old, victims shouldn't go thinking that we're not part of the solution.
Yeah, Kevin, I think also it sends two very clear messages. To those individuals who've committed murder and think they've gotten away with it, we're going to do everything we can to find you and prosecute you. To the victims who've had justice denied for too long, we're going to do everything we can to make sure we bring justice for you and your family. The passage of time does not diminish the pain and the sense of loss that these victims feel. As I've talked to victims across the state, they want to know that somebody's paying attention to it, and I think by us bringing the resources to bear to actually bring these prosecutions forward and get convictions, it means the world to these families.
And may I ask Kevin Zellner a question?
Sure.
Good morning. Gunshot residue had a lot to do with this case. I was just wondering, there's so many advances in DNA and types of forensic tools. What role is that going to have in the future in solving cold cases where you have new ways to catch the bad guys?
Well, I think that's one of the, as the General and Sheriff Marshak mentioned, there are a lot of these cases out there. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is sort through cases that have forensics available, but because of they were so long ago, those tools weren't available to investigators. And so one of the things we're trying to do is prioritize some of the oldest cases before that evidence spoils or is lost, to bring those individuals to justice if we can. But I think the premise of your question is, are these forensic tools available and going to help? I believe they will.
And last question, what sort of forensic tools are on the table now that weren't before that allow you to reach back and get old cases?
Well, I'll give you an example I was just discussing with the General earlier, and it was an '84 case where back then the only type of work done with the blood that was discovered at the crime scene was blood typing, AB, you know, that sort of thing. Now we have DNA testing available, and these people in these DNA labs are actually able to go back and look at minute amounts, as long as they've been preserved appropriately, and still determine an individual's DNA found within that blood that may be 20, 30 years old. That's one example.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we are in St. Louis right now, and St. Louis City may have up to 60% of its homicides unsolved during a given year. Are you looking into any of those past cases, or is it an issue where you referenced how easy it was to work with the prosecutor in Jefferson County? Is that a problem, or is that something you all are pushing for?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note we don't have original jurisdiction in those counties. We've done a lot of work with the federal prosecutors through our Safer Streets initiative, and have well over 600 charges through that partnership to prosecute crimes in federal court. Violent crimes in federal court remains a focus. We work with local prosecutors across the state who ask for our help. Kevin has done that throughout his entire career. We're committed to continue to do that. We've not received that level of cooperation from the circuit attorney here in St. Louis City, and I think the woes of that office are well documented with the turnover, the ineffectiveness. The office is a real problem. It's a disaster, quite frankly. But we're going to continue to do everything we can to bring justice for victims and to prosecute violent crime. And when we're asked to continue to prosecute cases, no matter where they are, we're going to do it.
Can you take some questions on the larger world out there?
Sure.
Housing?
By the way, I told the sheriff that there would be some questions about this, and then I'm sure there would be other questions about other stuff.
Does anybody else have anything on this? I just wondered, first of all, there's 6 Missouri state senators who in September during the veto session want to pass legislation that would prohibit companies from mandating vaccines as a term of employment. And if that were to happen, what are your thoughts on that? Is that appropriate? Is that inappropriate? What do you think about that sort of measure?
We would defend the law if it were passed. I think that what you're seeing right now is very dangerous road to go down. We start to segregate people in a way that, quite frankly, is very un-American. And so I have deep concerns about it just in general. Certainly our focus has been pushing back on government-related mandates, mask mandates, vaccine passports. We would push back aggressively and file suit if those came anywhere, and more lockdowns. The coronavirus is with us. It's serious. We need to take it seriously. But I think the fear-mongering that's taking place right now by politicians and by health bureaucrats is very dangerous. And what we know is that there are no studies, none currently, that would tell you that masking kids in school is effective. There aren't. In fact, there's a study that Ireland conducted very recently that shows that, in fact, they're not effective at all. But we do know that there's a significant health downside for those kids, whether it's emotional, psychological, loss of learning. We do know that that's the case. And so as we balance that, to me, those are decisions that parents should make, families should make, not the government. The government should not be in the business of mandating masks in schools when there's very, very low risk of contracting it, transmitting, or getting seriously ill. Thankfully, there have been no children, these are the facts, there have been no children under the age of 10 who've died of COVID. If you're under the age of 25, you have a 1 in a million chance of dying from COVID. And we need to take it seriously, but we also need to have some level of proportionality here. If you are vaccinated and you want to wear a mask, 6 masks, and walk around Forest Park all day long by yourself, this is America. God bless you. You can go do that. But do I think the government should be requiring that? I do not.
And I heard in the headlines today, St. Louis Zoo requiring its employees to get vaccinated or else by October. Some concert venues are going to have like a vax passport approved by you. Is there litigation in the works that you're working on some of this, or where does that stand?
I mean, we'll continue to monitor all this. Again, I just think it's a very dangerous road to go down. And people can make their own personal health decisions, and that's what they should be doing as they consider this. But in particular, the government requiring these things or leaning on businesses to do these things is a very dangerous road to go down.
And last question for me. What would you say if somebody says it's a very sane thing to do pressure of someone's fear of losing their job, force them to get vaccinated for the good of the community.
Yeah, if someone says that using fear is good, that is what every tyrant in the history of the world and every dictator in the history of the world has ever said, to accumulate, aggregate, and maintain power. This is America, the freest country in the history of the world, and I don't think that we should be allowing individual politicians who want to grab power and never let go of it, gain it in the first place. People can make their decisions. I believe in freedom, I believe in responsibility, but people can make these very important decisions themselves. And I don't want to live in some futuristic, dystopian, biomedical security state. And I'm going to do everything I can as Attorney General to protect the rights of individuals in the state. Other questions? Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.